Yo, 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 this is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today I wanted to check back in about a couple of uh, techniques I had mentioned in some previous episodes and how I'm coming along with them. So, first thing, or if I'm coming along with them rather, because the first thing I was talking about learning to ply on the fly with my drop spindle. And that is where you spin on your drop spindle, and then once you spin a certain length of yarn, you then chain ply what you just spun. So you're not simultaneously, but you're alternating between spinning and plying, and then at the end, when your bobbin is full, it comes off as a plied piece of yarn or skein of yarn or what have you. I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I'm not going to link any because none of them were like stood out to me as being fabulous, because for me it was very much getting some tips here and there and then seeing what felt right to my body. And you may or may not notice this is one single ply, and so I tried it for a little bit and it just wasn't for me. I am going to stick with just spinning singles and then plying them off my drop spindle. Couple of reasons why. One, I just mentally, I don't mind. I guess if I know the alternative now, it's like, oh, I could be doing this simultaneously and maybe some efficiency can be found there. But for me, the way my brain works, it's more efficient for me to be in one mode, which is my spinning mode, and then switch to another mode, which is my plying mode. Maybe there would be some sort of circumstance where that skill set would be important to have, and now I have that skill set. But for now, I think it just that mental shift, and I'm going to get into that later about, like, people talk about weaving in ends as you go so that you don't have, a whole bunch of weaving in ends at the end, because a lot of people don't like weaving in ends. And I think I want to get to I don't want it to feel like a chore, the plying part. I don't want to, like, I guess you could say, like, cheat myself almost, and I feel like I need to make usable yarn the way I want to make it. I want to be thoughtful in my plying, and I don't want to do it just because, oh, this will make me go faster, and so I kind of left it there, but I'm lucky I tried, and I'm happy that I have a new skill set with that. Also, for me, spinning is a more slow, meditative process. So I don't know if I want to add in go faster, go faster, go faster type things. And also, I don't think I enjoy plying on the drop spindle. I think I have a system that's working really well where I spin singles on the drop spindle, and I can get really nice uniform singles on the drop spindle. And I believe plying on the wheel, that rhythm that I get when I'm spinning on the drop spindle, it's a lot of like, oh, I got 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But when I ply, I like to ply in, very long bursts so that I feel like it gives me a more uniform yarn. I'm getting into a certain rhythm. I can, control the angle a lot easier, or like more consistent rather. And so I don't see I don't see that method being compatible with the type of yarn that I want to make. But like I said, maybe, if I was going on vacation and taking my drop spindle and, just kind of playing around with some fiber, it would be a way to have some fun. But for long-term slow making, I don't think that is for me. And so I just wanted to mention that because I mentioned it several times over the past year. Like, oh, I really want to learn that. I really want to learn that. And I'm grateful that I took that step to learn something new, because I was like, oh, that seems really hard. And it's like, it's not necessarily hard, just not compatible with what I'm trying to do. And so I wanted to make sure that I checked back in with that. The other technique I mentioned last week, I had quite a headache I was experiencing about Intarsia. And Intarsia, I think, is going to be a necessary evil. Like, plying, spinning my yarn, that's all optional things. But Intarsia is definitely a technique that I see in a lot of knits. It is, a type of color work technique, and I do like playing with color, and I do see the practical applications of it. And also last week I talked about how I don't want to be like, oh, that's just too hard, I'm not going to do it. That doesn't feel good to me. That's not the type of person I am. I'm the kind of person that I take challenges very much head on, and can't is something that just really, it's can D, not can't D, And so I go ahead with the Intarsia. I'm going to give it the college try. I haven't gotten much further than what I showed you last time, because this is going to be more of a weekend. I have long swaths of time to sit around and do this kind of project, and this weekend I was kind of busy, and so I watched, and I'm going to link it in the comments, or the show description, because my favorite knit tutorial person is actually Roxanne Richardson, and she's kind of my go-to when I need a video of something, and I definitely needed a video. So let me rewind for a refreshment, or for a refresher. I am knitting a doll for my daughter, and the pattern, the pattern is named Martha, and it's from a book. I showed it last week, and all of the dolls are knit flat, and then the details of the doll are done in color changes with Intarsia. And this is a rather low contrast color I'm doing, because the deep brown is going to be the skin color of the doll, and this more reddish brown is the hair of the doll. And so this would be the face, and then you work Intarsia on this side, work Intarsia on this side, and I was just having a very hard time visualizing how it was supposed to work based on the written instructions, because Intarsia is a color work technique where you knit with one color, you drop that color, and then you just start knitting with the next color. Or at least that's how it appeared to me and how it seemed to be written. And if you are a knitter watching this, you'll be like, well, if I knit it with one color, then drop that yarn and I knit with another color, it's going to be like kind of like knitting 2 at a time sleeves or something. I'm going to end up with stripes of color. And I was just like, how does that work? And I have the big Vogue knitting book, and they had a whole section on Intarsia and different color changes and how to work the color changes and where to put the yarn. And the thing I love about Roxanne Richardson is that she takes things that are very intimidating and scary. I believe she's the one that did the video I like on how to fix cables, and she does them so simply. It's like, oh, I could do that. She takes what can seem to be very intimidating techniques, and she always presents them in the most straightforward way. And so the Vogue knitting book was like, oh, if you're purling on this side and you knit on this side, and I'm just like, I just needed to get started. I don't need to take a master class. And Roxanne Richardson, basically the piece that I was missing was how to make the stitches lock together when you're changing colors. And it's very much like most people call it a weave and Steven after Stephen West, but it's just, when you tuck your ends as you go, so you just trap the yarn behind the stitch. And it makes more sense if you're reading an Intarsia pattern, or maybe y'all are watching this and y'all know Intarsia. But you just take the old color, lock in your stitches behind the new color, and then keep knitting. And so you will end up with a lot more ends to weave in. And I do hear that Intarsia has the tendency to appear to have more holes. Or, you can have some tension issues between stitches, but I guess that's what all the ends are going to be for, is weaving in and helping those tension issues. So I did it. I'm sticking with it. It's going to be a process, but I'm in it now. There's no turning back now. So, and it's only the head, because if you think about it, it's the hair and the head, and then there's a piece, the body is knit. I think the body's just, there's some striping because they have kind of built-in underwear on the doll. And so there's some striping with that. And then that's mostly the problem with the body is going to be, it's all knit flat, and I'm going to have to seam all of this up. And this is the head, so I'm going to have to wrap the head up and everything. And then I believe the sweater she's wearing is also Intarsia, but I don't think I'm going to do Intarsia on the sweater because I don't feel like that's necessary. I'm not going to make a color work sweater for a doll. I'm probably just going to pick a variegated yarn and kind of go nuts with that. Like, I've got some of this yarn that's like a self-striping yarn. I've got like a whole bag of worsted weight scraps that I'm just going to throw together for the clothes of the dog, because I can't imagine myself breaking into brand new skeins of yarn for doll clothes. I am doing some pretty big balls here for the doll's body and head, just because these are the only kind of natural colors I had to do the body. And so I'm learning something new. It's just the head. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just embracing it. The only other thing about Intarsia is because you're stopping old yarn and new yarn, and depending on how many colors you're doing, I imagine it can get pretty complex when you're working with, like, you know, a bunch of small shapes and a bunch of different colors. I can see it working very nicely for like scrappy projects and stuff, and I do like to do scrappy projects, and so you can put little shapes inside your knitting. So with this brown, I only need one ball of the brown because there's only one stripe of the brown. With the red, what I did was I caked up this auburn red, brick red, whatever you would call this color, and I'm pulling one from the outside and one from the inside. Traditionally, and that's the other part of Intarsia that intimidates me, is that they sell whole bobbins just for Intarsia, where you would estimate how much yarn you need for this section and cut the yarn and wrap it around a bobbin, and so you would have all kinds of small pieces of yarn hanging from this, and that's how you would do the color work. I cannot see myself, well, never say never, because I told my kid I wasn't making this doll, and here I am like a chump making this doll. So probably more to come in my Intarsic future. So that's that. I did, like I said, not so much about playing with on the fly, but I think Intarsia is something I do want to learn, and so I'm doing it. Didn't get very far, and it's not like it's that much of it, because like I said, it's a doll's head, and it's pretty much gonna be like boom, boom, and then there's a little bit of shaping for like the hairline, and then the top of the head is all of this color, and then she's got two buns, and I have to knit two small buns out of this, so that's gonna be fun. So more to come. I hope y'all like to hear me complain about things that I have 100% control over whether I do them or not. All right, the main event though, I want to check in with y'all about my Vertices Unite, because it is coming together, and I think it's going to be done pretty soon, so I want to keep giving you guys little updates. It's a lot small. I don't even know what the small version would look like, because I guess maybe I'm knitting pretty tight, and maybe it'll block out because garter can stretch out a lot, but it doesn't feel like a huge big shawl, and there's a choice in the pattern to do like the small version and the big version, and I'm doing the big version, but the big version doesn't seem unwieldy. So I'm glad I did that, even though I was going to do the big version no matter what. So this is the Vertices Unite by Stephen West, and last time y'all saw it, my progress keeper is right here, and it doesn't look like I did very much, because what happens on this section, this is section 1, 2, 3, 4, and you pick up stitches along the edge of section 1, and then you work this triangle doing some short rows. And so last time I was here, and that means I'd worked back and forth this way, this way, this way, this way, and created this triangle. And then once you do all the instructions for this triangle, which of course my stitch count was off after I did the triangle. Woo, this has been a ride. Then you come to this section. So I did my last time y'all saw me, I was here. I did all of this, and then we turn it sideways, and I am on section 5. And section 5 is connected to sections, what did I just say? This is section 4, this is section 3, and you're in between this area, striping back and forth. And this is definitely my favorite section so far. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm so happy that I'm doing my YouTube video, because one of the big reasons I started this channel is because I don't have a lot of people that can relate to my knitting in my real life. And I know y'all will understand the feeling of when you start using, when a project just starts to come together and the colors are right, the pattern is right. And it was just like, I'm making art. And so I'm so excited about this piece. I still don't know if the whole shawl itself is attractive, if I like it, but I definitely love it, and I love the process of it. I love the process of all the colors coming together, and this is my favorite combination yet. This blue is the yarn Rehab. I don't think I have do I have the thing for this? I do have the thing for this. It's the yarn Rehab, their moon Lorn base, and this might not be the right color because I did get these secondhand, but it's saying that this is black opal, and that would be a strange. It's a blue color. It's blue, and it's got a little bit of purples, some dark navies, and it's single ply superwash yarn. And then this is my hand spun single ply from Neighborhood Fiberworks and their Delray base on the Cobblestone base. And so this is wool and silk together, and it's yellow, but it's got like these rusty orange, like these long repeats of this rusty orange, and they're just coming together in such a way that it's heart jumping. And it's just like, it's giving me like very much like tropical vibes. I wasn't so hot on the yellow and blue here, but once you get into like that rusty orange color, and the same thing, it's also in this section 2 down here with the purple, and the way the purple and the orange play together, I'm just like, I love this. The yellow my only issue with like the bright yellow pieces is that I feel like it's very close to this green in section 1, but I think it also kind of marries section 1 and section 2 together in a way. But I do wish I would have. It was I don't know if y'all watched the first episode where I cast this on. It was very difficult to put 5 colors together and figure out which ones were going to be together, which ones were going to be separate. I knew at some point I wanted this yellow and blue together, though. I started the shawl with the yellow and blue together, and I loved it. My only issue with that is because the yellow in this case would have been color B. I guess I could have used it as color A. No. No matter what, if the yellow was in section 1, there would have been a section where the yellow was by itself. And my issue with that is not that I don't like the color. I love this color. I think it's gorgeous. It's because this is my hand spun, and it's a hand spun single. I was very nervous about the structural integrity of holding this yarn by itself. And so I intentionally chose it to be a color that was going to be held with other colors, because this blue is color A, and I guess it could have been color A. I guess it could have been color A. Nah, it's done now. So I think I had this whole mental thing where blue had to be color A, but I guess I could have done the hand spinning. I guess I was nervous that I was going to run out of I don't remember. It's neither here nor there. It's done. So what's going to happen is this is section 5, and it's all connecting to section 3. And so once I'm finished connecting this piece to section 3, the last section, section 6, is going to be the green by itself. And then it'll be done. I did have some thoughts that I wanted to share with y'all, because I never really know what my final product is going to be until I'm done. Because as the pattern is written, you finish the whole shawl, or rather you finish all the 6 sections of the shawl, and then there's like this purple area. Section 4 has live stitches, and then section 2 has live stitches, and the whole thing has an I-cord all around it. So what you do is you bind off the live stitches, obviously, and you pick up the edge stitches, and then you do one big I-cord around the whole shawl. And the way the pattern is written, the purple would be the I-cord bind off. I believe it's color 4 or 5. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Because I was thinking about, because these are all single ply yarns, I was thinking about using like an 8-ply sock yarn as the bind off, just to give it a little bit more structural integrity. So my, if my edges are rubbing against things, it's not getting as much pilling as it can happen with a single ply yarn. And also I do have a dark purple not single ply, 8-ply sock yarn that I could use. And I feel like the dark purple would kind of frame the whole thing and really make it pop. I was thinking about that. Then I started thinking about doing the bind off with this, which is not, and don't worry, I have a whole another cake of this, which is not ideal because of it being single ply and being a single ply hand spun yarn. But I just love this color so much. The only thing about that is I do not like I-cord bind offs with long color repeats, because instead of, then you get like long thick stripes along. And so I think variegated yarns look much better with the I-cord bind off. So I think I'm probably going to end up doing the purple. Also because the purple is not used very much in the shawl. So I'm going to have a lot of yarn left over. And that's probably one of my, I wouldn't call it a criticism, but something that gives me pause about this shawl is, I started with all fresh 100-gram skeins, and I think this lends itself better to scrappy projects, because now I'm going to have a bunch of like half cakes of yarn left. I'm going to have a lot. I feel like I'm going to have a lot of yarn left over. I do have a plan for all of this yarn. I will not tell you that yet, because my plans tend to change and tend to stretch out over long periods of time. I do have ideas of what I could do with a lot of leftover single ply yarn, but had I known that, I might have planned this out differently. That being said, I am definitely coming around to it. I had some frustrations last week, mostly because it was in a funky mood, but I've definitely come around, especially how nicely this section's coming along. And you can see my edge where I'm picking up section 3 is nice and smooth. I don't have any twisted stitches here. I'm excited about that. The numbers are all going to work out. The way the pattern is written, it could definitely be your first Stephen West shawl, and I think there's a lot of worthwhile techniques to learn. Especially, I got a lot of great tips from y'all about my SSKs and how those were coming together. If you don't know how to increase and decrease the pattern, gives you, a lot of tools, and then you can actually see like, oh, this is how you make a trapezoid. This is how you make a triangle. This is how you can make a rectangle. And I believe that those are really, really some worthwhile tools and an easy way to get into those tools. And the idea of picking up stitches, a lot of people are intimidated by, or don't like to do, it feels like a chore to some people. I actually like, once I learned how to pick up and knit, like that was like one of those days in knitting, like I will remember forever, being like, oh wow, that, because I remember reading my first pattern that said pick up and knit, and I literally picked up all of the stitches and then knitted them. And I don't know who I was watching or where it was at, and they were just like, no, pick up and knit into the stitch that you were picking up. And I was just like, my mind was blown. And it's like one of those things, like if you could go back and like watch your favorite movie again for the first time, like if I could, like that moment of like, it was just like, I leveled up basically. And so I actually don't mind picking up and knitting stitches, because it's just like, it reminds me of that moment and how like I went from, baby knitter to first grade knitter or whatever. So definitely back to my original point, definitely a good first Stephen West project. And obviously I'm going to go into deeper detail once I'm done with the whole project. But also really, if you are a more advanced knitter, there are places in the pattern where like this section right here, I don't need the pattern. I don't look at the pattern to do this part. It is incredibly memorizable. And if your stitch count gets off for some reason, it's really easy to be like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I can just fudge it to get to that place. You know, obviously if my stitch count is off, but I've picked up all of section 3, I know I'm done, you know? And those are the kind of things that come with time of learning how to knit and learning to read your knitting and all those kinds of things. Because like I told y'all, there are definitely places in here where I think in this section in particular, I missed a short row turn. There are places where my stitch count is off, but it's very intuitive of what you're supposed to be. You know, when you're picking up the stitches, you're filling up a certain area. When you're out of stitches, you're out of stitches, you know. When you're doing this section here, I think there's an extra row in here, or there's one less row in here. And so I just kind of have to keep that in mind as I'm working through it, that there's going to be those places where the numbers might be off. But if you know the shape and the shaping you're going for, and what you're supposed to be doing, because at the end of the day, you have like points like this where everything is supposed to be lining up. And so it's more so about working towards a specific shape than going to a certain stitch count or going to a certain, you know, row repeat, you know what I mean? And those are the things that come with time. And that could be definitely a learning experience. And it's one of those very digestible pieces where if you are like getting frustrated with a certain piece, like this, I actually enjoyed doing the red piece. I think I liked knitting the red piece because I actually like the red yarn, but this is where I had a lot of the mistakes and stuff like that. And then I just see now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I liked knitting that part, but I remember feeling kind of negative feelings, but looking back on it, it wasn't that bad. And so it's one of those things that, okay, if you're sick of making a giant monochromatic block, then, you know, next thing you know, this section here just took me like 2 or 3 days. You know, it's just a small triangle, you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's very digestible. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. Once you're in it, you can memorize what you're supposed to do, but then there's enough interest to go back and be like, oh, I need the pattern to get to the next part. And so it's a good balance of using your knitting brain and also being able to watch a little bit of TV too. That's the only thing I'm saying. And so I can see why it's starting to come together. See, I was just like, I don't know why people I don't even know if it's really even that cute. I could see myself either doing it, like I said, all scrappy, or doing it in 2 or 3 colors. And I think it would look like, you know, if these colors were exactly the same, and then maybe like these colors were the same color, and then maybe I think either 3 colors or monochromatic or like a self-striping yarn. I think there's a lot of ways you could play with this and play with the color and play with the layout. And so I get why people enjoy knitting this. It's a shawl, so it'll keep me warm. It is one of those things where I think people are definitely going to be like, Candace, did you knit that? And I'm going to be like, yeah, I knit it. Y'all know I didn't buy this at a store. Either I knit it or I bought a bunch of sweaters and cut them up and sewed them together, but you're not getting this at TJ Maxx, you know? That's all I really wanted to do, was just check in with y'all. I think the format of the show is going to be going more towards just what I did this week, what I worked on. And that's pretty much all I went to go see Kung Fu Panda today with one of my kids. And so I took a hat with me and I'm just chugging, hat. I took a tube with me and I'm knitting a giant tube. I'm not going to show you guys 1 inch of a tube every week. But as I work on things and as things are rattling around in my brain and feel super relevant in that week, I'm going to report out to y'all. And then, of course, as I finish things, I did finish that hat and blocked it. It's in a bin somewhere. But yeah, I'm going to stop here because I'm going to start rambling. Back to the technique thing. Y'all let me know in the comments. That's the question I have for y'all this week. When you are confronted with a new challenge or a new technique in your craft, are you the kind of person that's like, hey, how can I kind of cheat this and do my own thing because I don't want to learn nothing new? Or are you the kind of person that's like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I am a dog with a bone. You let me know. Once again, this has been candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knittin'. You can also hit me up at Rulude. It's getting warmer and warmer outside, so definitely go over to my Instagram if y'all like gardening, because that's what, where a majority of my gardening content is going to be. I just got some seeds in the mail, and I'm going to start rocking and rolling outside very soon. You can also email me, candibknittin@gmail.com, or you can go to the Ko-fi and buy me. Go to Ko-fi, buy me a coffee. Should it be? It should be go to coffee and buy me a coffee. I don't know. I also have a Ko-fi at Reloot on Ko-fi. All of that stuff is below. Till the next time, peace.